Right now, guys, governments all around the world are building digital cages for their citizens, as you have basically gone and seen, right? And most people have no idea it's even happening, which is a greater shame, especially to the sovereign individual, which we all try to become as entrepreneurs, right? Or generally, or I hope so, at least. But the question is, what are you going to be doing about it? And that's why I'm making this video. As I was just making my other video, I actually had a really good friend just message me, an old school friend who said, have you heard about these digital IDs? What do you think? So I thought, let's make a video on this. Clearly people need to hear this information. But here's the thing. When you're an entrepreneur, if you're even an entrepreneur, you're in an online business, you value financial privacy, freedom of movement, especially for business reasons, you really need to understand what is coming and how you can start planning now. So I'm Will Hodgson. Let me show you exactly what's happening today and where you can still escape to, essentially speaking. Now, this doesn't mean you're escaping anything. You can still pop into these countries. However, as a resident, obviously having a digital ID is a different life to not having a digital ID. So let's start with the UK, okay? I know they've gone back on some of the mandatory digital ID, but it is still being rolled out. If you look at who is behind all of this, and the companies and the contracts, actual based offshore, generally speaking, including HMRC's own building in the UK is owned by an offshore company, from my current belief. Keir Starmer announced the Brit Card, a digital ID, which is essentially a right to work to tackle immigration. I don't think so, mate. Every adult will need one in the UK by 2030, or 2029, I actually think it was, top of my head. Now, they've walked back on mandatory a little bit after nearly, I think it was 5 or 3 million people signed a petition against it. Now, 3 million people, that's one of the largest against votes in history, whatever they're called, parliamentary petitions or whatever you say, right? And again, they didn't walk back. It's still mandatory to conduct the right to work checks digitally, and the Home Office has already said the system will have a much wider use, quotation, much wider use in the future. Translation, this is only the beginning, okay? The EU, okay, is required to provide all its citizens with a digital identity wallet by the end of 2026. That is not optional, it is mandatory if you're an EU citizen, okay? Very interesting stuff. 27 countries, 500 million people, all getting digital IDs, whether they like it or not. Now, really let that marinate in your heads. And yes, they're calling it voluntary. Again, voluntary vaccines. We've seen it before. Okay, we will see it again. But when you can't access government services, you can't open banking. We've already seen banking troubles. I've had myself. Luckily, I've fixed them. I now have 40 bank accounts around the world, and there's a reason for that. But they can't prove that you work without it. Now you are a risk to society, apparently. So tell me whether this is voluntary or not. Please let me know in the comments. And again, if you don't know who I am, I don't normally make videos like this, but I thought it's due care. You can tell I don't really care about these professional cameras. I have them, but I just thought I'd jump on here and share my thoughts. Let's move on to China. Okay, this is where it gets really scary. Now, I'm quite pro-China, actually. I think Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Shanghai, fantastic locations, okay. Now, China's launched its national online identity in, I think it was mid-2025, right? It was like an app, I think it was July or June. Mandatory registration with your national ID card with facial recognition, all data stored on a centralized government database, okay. Here's the kicker. Chinese law actually says to disclose obligations and they can override personal data, meaning the government can access anything, anytime, for any reason. This isn't conspiracy stuff. This is happening in real time, okay? So you might call me a conspiracy, exit the video, unsubscribe, have a good life, mate. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I'm not doing anything wrong. Why should I care? For example, such as myself or my friends. As my friend even works, he's a QS in Birmingham, and he was asking me the question, It's financial surveillance. Digital ID systems are not designed to link your identity and have a free healthcare service and make it easy for governments. It is for every financial transaction you make. This could be then linked to carbon credits, how much you're emitting globally. Do you travel too much? Do you like to go on holiday? You can't do that. Do you drink too much Coca-Cola? Maybe a sugar implementation comes in. You can see where these theories can then go to, right? And it could be every payment, every investment, all tied to one centralized record. Now combine that with CBDCs, which is central bank digital currencies. I've made a 30-minute video on these, addressing them about 3 or 2 months ago. And this gives governments the ability of exactly the control which they've always desired, what you're spending, where you're doing, and potentially the ability to freeze or restrict your access to your own money and own digital movements and physical movements as well. That is a fact, okay? Now, think that's pretty paranoid? Canada froze the bank accounts of people who donated to the trucker protests without a trial, without a due process, with no true legal system in place. They just froze the accounts, okay? Now, imagine that capability, but turbocharged, you know, with a Ferrari engine that's turbocharged and modified. That is digital identity verification, you know? Now it's freedom of movement. These systems are not designed to be, you know, interoperable. The EU wallet will work across all member states. The UK system will connect to immigration databases. Now, what happens when your digital ID is required to board a plane, to rent a car, to check into a hotel? Now you can see the real problems, you know? Maybe you've drank too much Coca-Cola, maybe you've flown too much in 1 year, and now there's questions, why are you admitting so much carbon credits, whatever they are? Why are you admitting carbon emissions greater than the average person? Okay, and if you're running an international business, digital ID requirements create compliance nightmares, as you've already felt with banking most likely. Different systems in different jurisdictions, mandatory verification for employees, and data localization requirements. Okay, personally it's my data because it actually gets sold. You know, it gets sold and I don't benefit from my data being sold. No one even told me that they even have my data. You've seen back in, 2016 with Cambridge Analytica, there's got some good documentaries on this. You know, if you research some Edward Snowden, I think he's called, it's a rabbit hole and a half, you know, and that's not conspiracy, okay? So this isn't about whether you've got something to hide or not. Let's make that very clear. It's about whether you want to live in a world where the government has total visibility and control over every aspect of your life, not just financial life, okay, guys? So let me give you a breakdown of where it's really pushing the hardest. Full surveillance states: China, Russia. My girlfriend has been Russian, well, she is Russian, I've been with her for 1.5 years. Again, Russia's changed their tune a lot. The state-backed Max app launched in September 2025, very recently. Mandatory for accessing government services. FSB has real-time access to all communications. WhatsApp's now banned, Instagram's banned. It is a nightmare, okay? That's why we've seen so many Russians flogged to Thailand, flogged to Bali, where I am currently right now, okay? Tier 2 is the UK BRIC card, 2029, as I mentioned. Already building a gov.uk wallet. I'm just actually on the article right now. Right to work checks going digital. The EU, 27 member states, same. Pilots are already running in 26 countries plus Norway, Iceland and Ukraine. Interesting one right there. Australia, digital ID is active since 2024. Biometric verifications, tightening regulations, okay? And again, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, all following along with these suits. So the question is, where can you go? There's other countries. South Africa have gone and said it will be live before 2029 general elections over there, or elections, whatever they're called. I'm not a South African expert myself. I just know it's a nightmare to deal with taxes over there for sure. We've had clients from over there and we have rejected to have them as clients because we simply cannot help them. They have to leave, you know, similar to Australia. Okay, all right. So let's actually get down to where can you go. Okay, so let me be honest with you, there is nowhere completely immune. That is a fact. This is a global trend. It is a global movement. It is the new globalization. Okay, digitalization, you can call it. But there are places significantly better than others. The US has no digital ID systems. Individual states are experimenting. Apple just launched the digital ID for passports at 250 airports, but there's no federal mandate, right? That is a huge difference. Whether they move to this, most likely, but for now, very good place to be, especially with the recent upside of the US recently. Now, Why wouldn't they do that? The US actually has some fantastic havens. I've recently made a video on Wyoming, but essentially, the US has its own surveillance systems, FISA courts, NSA, all of that. But in terms of mandatory identity, they're pretty backwards. I mean, they haven't even got a bloody train system over there. They built an empire, stole it from the British, correctly as they should have done, and now they still haven't built true infrastructure. So when that empire falls, there is still no infrastructure. It'll be a complete mess. And I still believe that most of America is not in a great state. But yes, there's a fantastic place to do business. I don't do business there, but it does attract me completely. Now, real countries you could probably move to: Latin America, Panama, Paraguay. Great territorial tax-based systems, amazing places to be. But again, what is the trade-off? Infrastructure isn't as developed. Banking can be more complex. I mean, a lot more private, right? But pure freedom, solid options, okay? So, Southeast Asia, I would be very careful. I'm currently in Southeast Asia. Thailand has a digital ID system. So does Malaysia. So does Indonesia. It's not as well developed over in Indonesia where I am right now, but it's generally not for foreigners. And that's what's great. So in Thailand, for example, we got over 40 million users, I believe, top of my head, that are driven by the Paltang government benefits app. But the foreigners it's not mandatory to sign up for at all. You can live in Thailand on a DTV or an LTR visa, which I have done myself, I still hold, and without enrolling in their digital ID systems. And again, when I was living there full time, I've recently just left Thailand. I left Dubai, I left Thailand. I've really fallen out of them because of how they're changing. We've had the Dubai 9% corporation tax. I'm not in a position to be paying 50 grand for economic substance abroad, right? Not for my business. We're going to move everything to Hong Kong, which I will be making another video on. And that's what we do for clients, and we've gone and done it for ourselves. We live in practice by what we preach, essentially. And again, it's not tax advice, it is pure consulting. And again, it's a great place to be. Now they've changed their tax laws. Now it's very confusing on foreign income. Was a territorial-based system on foreign income, but now if you remit it, potentially you could be taxed on it from the prior year. Very confusing. I've tried to get my head around it, and I've fallen out with the advisors there. They just say one thing from one legal advice. I've got legal advice, and they say different things. So I said, I cannot operate here, I really need to be clear on what this foreign income law is. The Philippines has the Philly ID, with biometric collection, but the enforcement for foreigners is very minimal. It's more for our citizens. Again, the Philippines can be a tax haven if you are a non-citizen of the Philippines. And again, I mentioned Indonesia as well. For digital nomads, international entrepreneurs, Southeast Asia offers a practical middle ground. You can live there, run your business, and generally there's no CFC rules, and largely stay outside of a digital ID. You've got Malaysia as a tax haven. Potentially Thailand still is to an extent. No crypto gains tax as well if you're a crypto investor. And the Gulf, especially the UAE, okay, this is like a hybrid. So when I was in the UAE, I still have my ID card. I still have my company there. I'm going to be closing it down. As I mentioned in another video, I really fell out with them as well. Still love Dubai for meetings, but for me to base there personally, it's just not me. It's just not a life I want to live. I don't want to live in a bloody desert, okay? So I prefer trees. As you can see, there's a few trees in the background here. Beautiful nature here in Bali. Will I be here for more than 6 months? No. But is it a great place to have a small base, keep coming back to? Yes, of course. Beautiful, beautiful. So the UAE has the Emirates ID system. It's a digital ID system. Again, you are essentially explicitly positioning yourself. You're exposing yourself to the UAE government, but there's a lovely trade-off of entrepreneurship there. That you're essentially trading your digital ID for your network, your lifestyle, XYZ. They are not coming to take your assets away from you, such as the UK, Canada, Australia, and other high-taxed EU countries as well. Plus, you get zero income tax, zero capital gains, strong banking, and excellent infrastructure. Completely, I was amazed how the UAE works. It is fantastic, all apart from the traffic. So please get some new trains, guys. Now, the wild cards. I've also lived and have bases in some of these myself. Obviously, as I mentioned before, my girlfriend is Russian, so I've had to experience different areas of the world. We have lived in Georgia. We've also lived in Montenegro at the same time. Also the Caribbean too. I've been to Dominican Republic, we've been to BVI, XYZ. I've been through these visa processes with her. Georgia was very easy. No digital ID cards, territorial taxation, extremely easy residency, 1 year visas. 1% taxation. Montenegro, very flat tax, Euro friendly, potentially is joining Europe, but right now, beautiful country, a little bit boring for my liking. We full on traded Montenegro for Georgia in terms of our, third base, second base around the world. The Caribbean, we've got St. Kitts, Antigua, Grenada. Yes, you can buy citizenships as long as you're not Russian. Visa citizenship by investment with minimal digital infrastructure and very strong privacy and asset protection, traditional values, essentially speaking. Now, here's the key point. You don't need to make the move permanently. Bank accounts in multiple jurisdictions, businesses, structures are not tied to a single country's ID systems, if that makes sense, okay? It's obviously hard to speak about because it's all theory right now, but we are seeing all of this being implemented around the world. Because when it's not, if your home country tightens the screws, you have two options, okay? You have the ability to leave, number one, okay? That could be one option. Number two, you want assets and income streams that aren't under control by a single government. That's what I've always believed in, always preached and always lived in by myself, And that's what international structuring is really about. It's not tax evasion. It's pure protection for your family and yourself moving forward, as it always should be, And it's just being sovereign. It's the ability of controlling your life on, your terms. For example, when we do some solutions for clients, yes, they could still be UK residents, but it gives them the ability to control when they receive their funds personally to benefit from. Now, what should you do now? If you're in the UK, probably leave, but you've probably seen this all over YouTube, right? Probably get a second residency, maybe a third one, an extra base, and potentially look at also another passport as well. A very key topic, we've seen the demand for second citizenships at HPT Group completely rise. And this is a foundation. You need legal status in at least another country. Maybe it's UAE Golden Visa, Thailand DTV, Panama Friendly Nations Visa, Portugal D7. There are options around the world for every different budget. Paraguay, for example, just comes under $2,000 a year at cost price, okay? So don't keep all of your money in one country. Number one, open accounts in multiple jurisdictions with strong banking privacy. Singapore, Switzerland, the UAE. Spread your assets around the world and structure your business internationally. If you're running a business online, there is no reason it needs to be tied to your home country's jurisdiction. Consider holding companies in places like the British Virgin Islands, the Isle of Man, as I've just made a video on how we saved a client over £2 million a year doing this. And again, it's the ultimate insurance policy. The CBI programs that start around $80,000 around the world. That could be, there's Vanuatu. I think Andrew Tate has a passport there. I'm not a big fan of him, but he does have a passport there. He has thought about this type of stuff, and there's a reason for that. Number 5, we have to stay informed. So the landscape is changing very fast around the world. And, as a man-to-man, it is quite frightening, actually. So what's true today might not be true in 12 months' time, okay? So follow the developments, keep up to date. I always follow IMI Daily, a really good news outlet that I keep up to date with and obviously get ideas for videos like this today. This one here today was generated by just personal experience with friends, just texting me, asking for some help. But the window is to act now, essentially. And once these systems are fully implemented, it becomes very hard to exit. So plan for the future. So if you do want help through some opinions, through some consultations, residency, structuring, second passport, that is what we do at HPT Group. I look forward to hearing from you. If you are interested, the link is down below. And if not, please like, subscribe, comment, share your true, honest thoughts. And I look forward to hearing from you. Other than that, guys, cheerio. Bye-bye.